We were in our first show after graduating from Cooper Union. It was at this non-profit space in the Lower East Side. The usual kind of space, like exposed brick, rafters, before those kinds of things were considered cool. Some walls were crumbling. We spent a lot of time figuring out how to hang our shit without bricks falling on us. Nobody was allowed to use the toilet because the city had turned the water off. So you had to either go find a diner blocks away, or you took a shit in a bucket that these guys from Parsons left in the bathroom. Celia and I did not shit in the bucket, thank you very much. I might have peed in it, though. That show wouldn't bring in any of the blue chip gallerists, but maybe some of the B team would show up. The no-name gallerists who don't get reviewed in The Voice or Art Forum or anywhere, really. Just somebody who could maybe, just maybe, in a 1 in a million chance go on to show our work in some middling gallery. And then maybe it'd be seen by somebody who once met some blue-chip gallerist's mistress's nephew's art history tutor. And they might mention up through that impossible chain that they'd seen some hot shit. And maybe someone from the good gallery should come down to the no-name gallery. But we didn't bank on that. We couldn't even bank on a toilet. We were nervous before the opening. Celia and I hadn't really sold anything serious yet. Not to anyone but friends and family. And we'd used up anyone who'd ever buy anything from us that way. That is a small market. Not that we did this to make money, but with how famous people like Jean and Keith had gotten and how rich they'd gotten, money was on everyone's minds. It was probably 1 a.m. and the crowd thinned out. People were looking for an after party. Even Celia said it might be time to leave. And I'm like, Celia, seriously, this might be my only opening. Let's just stay until the end. And then we look over at her photographs. She'd hung 2 sets, some shots from inside the A train and some others from a Russian bathhouse in Oceanside. This guy with long black hair and a cowboy shirt was looking at her photos really intensely. And Celia said, Tribeca Darrell is looking at my photos. I looked closer, and sure enough, him. He grunted, "We've got a gorilla for sale here," in that airy drawl of his. He didn't even turn to look at us. Didn't know if he talked to us or himself. And Celia said, "Excuse me?" "A gorilla." He put his hands together and pointed his index fingers like a gun at the middle of the pics. And then he made a big imaginary box with them, stretching his arms out before completing the shape around his belt. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the shape of a gorilla. He finally turned to her and said, "It's about time." And he pointed at one of the subway pictures. He said, "It's about space." And he made air circles around the photos. "It's about strange people." He pointed out different models in each of the pictures. "In the strangest place." Celia said, "Oh yeah?" Obviously no idea what to make of this guy. He kept saying, "It has a refreshing new feeling. A refreshing new feeling. How many of these have you sold tonight?" 0, of course. Darrell still had his gallery in Tribeca, but now people were taking him more seriously. His artists were starting to be poached by the blue chip galleries. He said, "Tell me about this work," in that nasally drawl. "I want to know everything." Celia pointed at a model in the A-Train photo and more or less recited her artist statement, saying she wanted to show how a person changes the landscape around them simply by being present, without any need to dig up dirt or move boulders. He said, "I fucking love that. Do they love it at Cooper Union?" I said, "We did." And Celia looked at me like I was lying. Then she looked at him and she said, "Some people liked it. Not everyone sees what I'm doing." He moaned, "Ah, well, you know what Kung Fuza said, right? Everything has its beauty, but not everyone sees it. We didn't know who Kung Fu-Tzu was. Of course, a guy who goes by Tribeca Daryl used Confucius's proper name to try to impress people.